In this video tutorial, we're learning about friction and how this force applies to rock climbing. So friction is a force, and it's basically the resistance to motion that is caused by contact between two surfaces. In this picture here, the two surfaces that are in contact are the climber's shoe and the rock face. Friction force acts in the opposite direction to motion, and as a result, moving things are slowed down or stopped by friction. So if you think about kicking a soccer ball across the grass, you'll probably see the ball move away from you, and eventually it will slow down and stop. Okay, this is because of friction. You might like to think of how you can apply your knowledge of Newton's first law, the law of inertia, to that example of the football being kicked across the grass and then slowing down and stopping. So friction occurs when these two objects slide or roll past each other, or one object rolls or slides over another. It can also occur when those two objects are attempting to slide past each other, but no motion is actually occurring. We have several different factors that affect friction. So the greater the weight of the objects, the greater the friction. The rougher the contact surfaces, the greater the friction. The greater the speed of the objects, the greater the friction. The more irregularities in the surface, the greater the friction. And also, when there is a greater surface area between the two contact surfaces, then the greater the friction as well, and that can usually go along with how rough the contact surface is. So if you have a look at these factors affecting friction, and then have a look at the two people in picture A and B, you should be able to start to give some reasons about why we are seeing person A descend down the slope very quickly compared to person B. So just pause the video and see if you can make a wee list based on your knowledge and the factors affecting friction, why we have person A going down the slope and why person B is looking relatively stationary there. At this point, I also want to talk about the role of lubrication. So lubricants make things more slippery. They generally make the contact surfaces less rough as well, and so water, for example, can act as a lubricant. It's the reasons why we're encouraged to slow down when we're driving on wet roads, because with the rain there is less friction to slow us down when we have to do an emergency brake. So in climbing, friction is our friend, okay? It's one of the things that stops us from, I guess, sliding down off the wall. So some of the ways that climbing that friction is increased in climbing is that the surfaces of the wall, on our climbing wall, are quite abrasive or rough, and also on the holds as well. You can make use of chalk, which will reduce your sweaty palms, so reduce that lubrication on your hands and improve your grip. And also climbing shoes, which we've used now, have a sticky material or a rough surface which will improve the grip and where the climbing shoe contacts onto the wall. As well as different equipment that we use to increase friction, there are also different techniques that we can use to increase friction in climbing and in belaying. So techniques like palming, which is a hand grip, and smearing increase the contact area. So an example of smearing is shown on the bottom picture on the slide here. Okay, and you can see that there is far more contact area, or far more surface area in contact with each other between the climber's boot and the rock. compared to this picture of the top, okay, where it's just their toe contacting on the rock. So that greater surface area in this technique of smearing increases the friction, but also the downward force and sort of pushing your foot downwards actually increases the friction as well, because it's like the two surfaces are attempting to slide past each other. As well as those techniques, when we lock off and hold the rope down when we belay, that actually increases the friction on the rope, and as we know, that's a really important thing in our safety. And when you're descending the wall, leaning back further actually increases the horizontal component of friction, and we'll talk a bit more about that in the next couple of slides. So the photo on the left here shows an open grip with the palm over the surface of the rock and the climber's weight underneath it. This is a grip called palming. So pushing on the inside of the palm, it's particularly effective when there aren't any clear climbing holds or grooves in the rock, or on the wall if you're actually just using a sloping hold or part of the wall on an incline or something like that. So palming increases the surface area between the hand and the rock face, which, as we know, increases friction and will allow for better grip. Okay, this again is most effective when the climber's body weight is directly underneath the hand, and because this allows the sliding action, or the attempting to slide, to actually help with that frictional force. In this one here, we have another example of smearing, okay, as a foot technique for increasing friction as well. So this photo of the climber descending, in this case, actually shows the horizontal component of friction for a better foot grip. Okay, so if he stands in a more upright position like this is his head here, okay, what you'll actually find will happen is his feet will slip off in this direction. Okay, by leaning back, he's actually increasing the horizontal component of friction. So the friction is occurring in this direction here. And this is one of the reasons that we get, as you're descending the wall, we get you to lean right back and try and put your feet flat up against the wall. So instead of completing a whisk sheet for this video, you do need to take notes. I would like you to then see if you can make links between friction, or knowledge of friction as a force, and Newton's first law and Newton's third law. And then the final task is to complete this table looking at the advantages and disadvantages of friction for climbing. Now, we've already talked about how friction can be our friend, but there are some disadvantages as well. So just have a little think about if you can identify those, and then bring this table with you to class for our next session.